we have introductions first, and then we have a topic from CloudHub 2.0. We'll see the overview, architecture, features, and what is the importance of the changes and the summary. And we'll have a trivia, and then we'll have a networking time. So at the end, we will allow you to we will enable your mic and camera, so you can come into the screen, and then you can introduce yourself if you want. So that would be the end of the session. So you can start recording. Yeah, you've started, right?
Yep.
So for this group, we have two organizers, and one is Shubham, is very young and energetic. So he'll introduce himself after me. So you can go ahead, Shubham, now.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Welcome to the very first MuleSoft Mysore Meetup. And yeah, so I am Shubham Chaurasya, and I'm working as a MuleSoft developer in Millennium, India. And yeah, so show of hands, I guess this is for everyone because this is the first meetup. So yeah, Giridhar, to you.
Yeah, myself, I'm Giridhar, and I'm a certified MuleSoft developer, integration architect, and platform architect as well. So, and I worked on several integration technologies. Now I'm working for an Hastin as a senior architect. So I'm pleased to say that I have been recognized as a mentor by MuleSoft as well, along with the MuleSoft leader. So that's pretty much about me, and we'll see about next slide. And he's our speaker today, Dipankar. So Dipankar is, yeah, Dipankar, go ahead. You can better, you can, we want to hear from your words.
Hey, thanks, Giri. Yeah, so my name is Dipankar Aich. I'm from MuleSoft. Even though I'm from MuleSoft, I'm joining this meetup completely in my own individual capacity. So whatever I'm going to speak today, guys, as Giri has already flashed the safe harbor statement, uh, uh, for making any purchasing decisions of MuleSoft, make sure you guys read the product documentation and refer only thing whatever available at this point of time, right? Now, about myself, I am a senior technical architect in MuleSoft here. So before that, I have spent around 15 years in IT services industry, spanning across multiple organizations. Predominantly in Java, J2E, and integration technologies, MuleSoft and other integration and API management technologies like JBoss Fuse, Oracle Fusion Middleware, APG, and all, right? Uh, very excited to be part of this session today. And first and foremost, thanks to Giri and Shubham for giving me this opportunity and inviting me as a speaker in this event. Really excited and looking forward to it. Yeah. That's about me, guys. Feel free to be interactive. Ask whenever you want to speak up, and I'm sure Giri or Subham will unmute you so that you can ask your question. You can interrupt anytime, and let's be interactive, right? Yeah. Probably some of you already know me or heard me in other MuleSoft events and sessions, but like Shubham and Giri, this is also my first session as MuleSoft's meetup speaker. So I hope you guys will enjoy. Yeah. All
You're
right. Over
most
to you,
welcome,
Giri.
Dipankar. So,
No problem.
and today we have a guest who do not need an introduction because they are very, I mean, he's very active in community and in almost all the MuleSoft events as well. He's Mr. Ashish Pardi. So Ashish, you can speak out. I have just enabled. Hey, Ashish.
Hey, thanks, man.
Hey,
I'm
Ashish.
Dipankar. Hey, Dipankar, you know me, right? Okay. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kiri. I got it right. Yeah, nothing important, guys. Okay. About me, as Giri said, right? Some of, but I'm a very enthusiast. You can say that very engaged, very busy with the Microsoft community. Okay, so whatever I know, I try to share that. Whatever it is, A, B, C, D, whatever it is. I try to share. And Dipankar, you know me, right? So in recent event was like delivery champion. So he's the guy who actually reviewed my delivery champion. Okay, and it was nice journey in delivery champion. We discussed a lot. Okay, so we in delivery champion basically you know discuss the real stuff, what you actually going to deliver with the client, right? And that's how that solution you discuss, and then a lot of gaps, if there are any gaps, you try to resolve and take the suggestions from the experts from the big. So that's what I did do whenever I learn something on topic. So I'm going to present this topic again. So I thought of, let's see how the expert is delivering. Then maybe I'll take some input from here, and then I'll deliver it to my meetups also. So this
Definitely,
topic is really, yeah.
we want to get that from you as well.
Yep. So this topic is really, really, we can say hot right now. So because this is the future of MuleSoft. So let's see. Okay, so how it goes. I can say in other words, it's RTF managed by MuleSoft. In other words, simple words. Okay. So let's see how it goes. And that's all about me, guys. Okay, I have around now in industry I have around 11 to 12 years of experience. In MuleSoft, I have around 5 years of experience now. But in integration domain, almost 10 years of experience. So that's what about me. Okay. Giri,
Thanks for
thanks, man.
joining,
I'm feeling
Ashish.
like I'm a speaker.
Thanks for
Okay.
joining. So I've been associated with Dipankar almost for like 4 to 5 years. We work together. So
Mhm.
yeah, Dipankar, over to you. You can take up. I'll stop sharing so you can share and you can start your.
Great. It's great to hear from you, Ashish. And yeah, you are a really one of the most deserving delivery champion in the cohort. Really happy for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right. Let me share my screen. All good, right, Giri?
Yes, Dipankar.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining in. So we are going to start our session today on the CloudHub 2.0 overview topic. So we'll cover, as Giri mentioned earlier, right? We'll cover the overview, what it is all about, and why MuleSoft has launched CloudHub 2.0, has kind of re-architected the whole iPaaS underlying architecture, right? We'll talk about certain benefits that customers can get out of it, and we'll talk about the architecture in detail in later stages. So we'll start with what CloudHub is, right? So I'm sure probably all of you know, right? MuleSoft comes up with a comprehensive set of options for deployment, right? For everyone, be it on-premise customers, be it CloudHub, be it for the enterprises, they're looking for hybrid deployment option, starting from private cloud, public cloud, even today, OpenShift. For OpenShift also, you have deployment support, right, in form of RTF. So CloudHub is the most popular one, and MuleSoft also keep on recommending CloudHub as the go-to deployment option for any enterprise, be it large scale or small scale. It's an integration platform as a service, which means it is completely cloud-based, MuleSoft managed, and customers, they don't need any infrastructure as such. So I'm sure most of you are all aware about what CloudHub is, right? At least CloudHub 1.0. Now, CloudHub 2.0 is nothing but a re-architected version of CloudHub 1.0, where it still remain, MuleSoft managed completely. The underlying architecture is changed. It from um, worker based or AWS EC2 instance based provisioning. It has become a container based orchestration service or platform, where you can spin up the replicas to host your Mule applications in a completely different infrastructure provided by AWS, which we called Elastic Kubernetes Service, or EKS. So CloudHub 2.0 basically has moved from EC2 based provisioning to Kubernetes based, container based application provisioning, right? As you have heard Ashish saying that it is just a runtime fabric managed by MuleSoft, right? Nothing else. Exactly same, exactly, absolutely correct. So it is, if some of you probably are familiar with this diagram, whoever are familiar with RTF. So this diagram is looks same as RTF, and this is nothing but an MuleSoft managed RTF environment in cloud, right? Now, why we launched it? There are multiple reasons, right? If you think about the CloudHub users, or the customers who are using CloudHub or RTF, there are two distinct categories of customer, right? Uh, One set of customers, they probably want to use containerized deployment option, because it is more future proof, more flexible in terms of extensibility and scalability. But they are not able to use it because there was no RTF, managed RTF or managed Kubernetes uh, provided by MuleSoft. They didn't have any expertise, or they don't have any matured IT team or IT infrastructure team or network team to have their own Kubernetes cluster managed, right? Or have their own RTF cluster managed. So that's why they were forced to continue to use CloudHub 1.0, but they were looking for something similar, right? As container based deployment option. And there are other customer who were forced to use RTF in their own infrastructure, even though they are willing to keep all their workload in cloud, because again there was no offering from MuleSoft to managed RTF environment in cloud, right? So that is why they have to continue to use RTF in their own on-premise or public cloud infrastructure, right? So keeping those set of customers in mind, their requirements in mind, MuleSoft has kind of re-architected the whole CloudHub platform, bringing in that containerized, underlying containerized services and infrastructure under the hood, right? So that the customers get to get the benefits of containerized platform, and have a much more future-proof deployment option, right? Which can be more extensible and more scalable in future. So those are the main reason, and on top of that, since it is MuleSoft managed, it is complete. It comes with completely an easy to use UI for their better operational experience for their own customer IT team or network team, or MuleSoft team rather. And these are the all benefits they get out of it, right? All the customers who move from CloudHub 1.0 to RTA, CloudHub 2.0, or even from on-premise RTF or on public cloud RTF based infrastructure to CloudHub 2.0, right? So it's easier, much more easier and faster to deploy, keep get your uh, infrastructure and environment spinned up very quickly, giving you much reduced time to market. Definitely much less operational overhead, right? The customer, they don't have having a complete full-fledged network team or IT team to manage their MuleSoft runtime, right? So much less operational overhead for sure, right? A lightweight application isolation, coming from moving from worker EC2 worker based isolation to containerized isolation. It helps spinning up applications much faster and keeping applications much more isolated and secured in a separate containerized environment. And since it is containerized, it comes with much more granular resource profile, right? So that the customer can start pretty small, and they scale up incrementally, right, in future. So these are the predominantly that's about what CloudHub is, 2.0, CloudHub 2.0 is, and why MuleSoft has come up with this offering, kind of re-architected, revamped that whole underlying infrastructure and platform. Now, talking about its internal architecture, again, as you heard Ashish saying, it is completely MuleSoft managed RTF. So whoever are familiar with RTF, they will probably know about some of these terminologies, some of these underlying architectural details. Uh, um, we'll talk about it, but most important aspect of CloudHub 2.0 architecture are two things here: shared space and private space, right? So shared space is nothing but your shared multi-tenant environment in the cloud, in a big bang RTF cluster or EKS cluster that MuleSoft has in every single region where CloudHub 2.0 is supported. We'll talk about it in detail, but it's like a multi-tenant large scale one single big bang cluster in a single region, where you can or any customer, whoever is using CloudHub, they can go and deploy their application without bothering about their underlying connectivity, without bothering about setting up their inbound traffic connectivity and all, right? So they all get a same domain, and then they all get the same cluster, same load balancing, same network configuration, where all their applications are running in a multi-tenant environment. Multi-tenant means it's shared by all customers who are using CloudHub 2.0 in the same region, right? Now, you may ask, right, if it is shared, then how can we keep it isolated, right? So there are namespaces in the logical namespaces in the big cluster, where based on your or the customer's own environment, the environment that they choose to deploy an application, based on the environment ID, there's a namespace, logical namespace created within the cluster, and the internal connectivity between namespace are controlled, and that is where your customers applications in shared space still get isolated from each other, right? Now, unlike shared space, the much more enhanced or much more preferable option to go for is private space, which is a single tenant and virtually private and isolated space within that EKS infrastructure that the AWS is providing, on top of which the CloudHub 2.0 platform is built. It's like a VPC, right? It's exactly like a VPC that you had in CloudHub 1.0, where you used to define a CloudHub VPC to completely isolate the applications for that particular customer, right? Or for that particular group of environment or set of environment. Same thing here. It is exactly the same thing. You create a separate logical space for that particular customer, for that particular environment, maybe one for production, maybe one for all the non-production environment, and keep it separate from all other customers, right? uh, you can go and create multiple private spaces in one region under one account, or even you can span your private spaces across in different regions, not one private space into multiple different region, but you can create multiple different private space into multiple different regions, basically, right? Within the subscribed number of private space that the customer may have. Now, talking about their internal architecture, how it looks like, this is what a shared space look like, right? So it's all about the runtime, right? So the control plane remains the same. You still continue to use the same control plane that your customer is using, be it in an US control plane or EU control plane. There are these two options are available, as you know already, and you continue to use all the control plane services like management center, runtime manager, API manager, and all. And when it comes to runtime plane, if you use if you use shared space, right, it is basically, as I said, one EKS cluster in one region, in that region that you select, right? So there are multiple servers, there are runtime fabric service running in, considering all the nodes, all the servers under the hood, completely abstracted from the completely abstracted from your customers. They don't have to worry about what is there underlying, whether how the nodes are managed, how the pods are managed in RTF cluster. They don't have to worry about at all. Okay, it is completely abstracted, as I said, and uh, there are it is completely shared multi-tenant. So all the customers who are using SharePoint, they continue to use share that whole cluster among themselves, right? And under the hood, it is all Docker and Kubernetes, as you know, that's all RTF is, right? And using Docker images or Docker containers and Kubernetes orchestration service, right, to manage those containers. Uh, and when it comes to private space, it is isolated, logically isolated space, which where you get your own private network, your own EKS cluster to run all the workers and ingress controllers within that particular private space. Uh, Keep on using the same control plane as you are using, um, and you can continue. You can create multiple different private spaces in the same region under the same business group. It is isolated against it's isolated from one every business group. So each business group can create their own private space and continue to use within the same account. And that's the main difference between shared space and private space, right? And when it comes to let me talk about the private space in a little bit more, so that you understand it a little bit more coming into the subsequent discussions. So when it comes to networking, right, every private space uh, it's like it's a single subnet. So it's your own subnet from it, that you are extending from your customer larger enterprise network, right? So you assign one private CIDR block based on the based on the size that you want. It's a different topic again to discuss, but based on the number of applications that you run, based on the your entire landscape and enterprise application, you determine one CIDR block and assign it to the private space, which from where all the replica IPs are gets assigned, and make it keeps it private and isolated from others, right? When it comes to downstream connectivity, connecting to your enterprise data centers, there are two options: VPN and transit gateway. Unlike earlier, where you used to get other two options called VPC peering and the direct connect in CloudHub 1.0, those are decommissioned in CloudHub 2.0. And as you know probably, right, it takes a lot of time to set up direct connect kind of connectivity, right? Instead of that, even AWS is recommending everyone to use transit gateway, by which you can attach multiple data centers, multiple VPN connectivity in through one transit gateway attachment with your VPC, and it is completely self-serve, right? So that's why these two options are there as of now. You can continue to use continue to configure your own domain, your own vanity domain, as per your enterprise preference or customer preference, by configuring multiple different TLS context within the private space, and keeping multiple different domain names. uh, Most important thing, that the most important difference that you will see between CloudHub 1.0 and 2.0 is in terms of firewall, right? So earlier in CloudHub 1.0, there were only one firewall which was there to control inbound traffic. Now, when it comes to CloudHub 2.0, you get to configure both inbound firewall and outbound firewall, right? To control your outbound traffic as well, which makes it much more secured in terms of reaching out uh, the external or backend endpoints and services, and making sure that nobody gets to send the data anywhere outside where it is not supposed to send, right? Uh, Another important difference is in terms of static IP. So earlier, when you provision one application in one worker in CloudHub 1.0, you can assign static IPs from a pool of static IP that you get from MuleSoft. That was a limited number of static IPs that you used to get. I think if I can recall, it was 5 per VPC, right? And the customers were easily exhausted with the static IPs because it was per worker. And that is where a huge change is there, a major change is there in CloudHub 2.0 connectivity, where the static IPs are automatically assigned and provided by MuleSoft as soon as you set up your private network within the private space, right? And these static IPs are assigned to not to each replica or application in the that you are deploying in the private space, but these are associated to the network components, right? Where the inbound static IPs are associated to the network load balancer, and the outbound static IPs are associated to your NAT proxy, right? NAT gateway. So if you look at the connectivity diagram, overall the end-to-end connectivity or architecture diagram of a particular private space, this is what it looks like, right? So you have a completely logically separated subnet using a separate private CIDR range based on the customer's enterprise IT network. And there is a load balancer, proxying all the inbound traffics coming into your own Mule runtime. All the API consumer, whoever are reaching to trying to reach out to your Mule applications, they have to go through this network load balancer, right? So all the network firewall rule and network inbound static IPs are applied to this particular load balancer, right? So that anyone who wants to allow a certain configure IP allow list, basically, or IP whitelisting for allowing their outbound traffic to reach to MuleSoft, they can use the inbound static IPs to easily allow, and they don't have to go by each Mule application or each Mule replica, right? That's a huge change in the connectivity aspect. Okay. Similarly, for all the outbound traffic, to control the traffic, there is a NAT gateway which allows the traffic to go out to internet and the private data centers, uh, where you can configure the outbound firewall rules, and the outbound static IPs are also associated to the NAT gateway, right? So that anyone or I mean, if you want to set up network connectivity uh, to a particular underlying data center or a service provider, right? Using IP whitelisting, they can it's very easy to use those in outbound static IPs to set up that IP whitelisting, right? Without again going by each worker IPs or replica IPs, right? Uh, when it comes to backend connectivity to data centers or the customers, private VPCs which are there in public cloud or private cloud, be it Azure or AWS or GCP or any other cloud-based infrastructure, uh, you can continue to use Anypoint VPN or transit gateway, right? So transit gateway is much more enhanced and recommended option over VPN, Anypoint VPN, which comes by default redundant, and redundancy is addressed by default by AWS, and you get to connect to multiple data centers and VPCs at the same time, right? Uh, when it comes to control plane connectivity with the control plane in terms of managing the entire entire infrastructure within the private space, we MuleSoft automatically establishes the connectivity through a connection which is secured using mutual TLS or 2 SSL, right? So each your monitoring, Anypoint monitoring, keeps on getting all the analytics data or monitoring data from each and every replica where the applications are running. When it comes to controlling the entire cluster, EKS cluster or RTF cluster, the runtime manager, we have an agent running in the private space with the ingress controller nodes, which keeps on communicating with the runtime manager through a mutual TLS connectivity, right? To manage, keep sending the status and to manage all the start, stop, and all those management activities, right? So that's about CloudHub architecture. I'll quickly give you a sneak peek of what are the difference, highlight the difference between shared space and the private space.
Dipankar,
I Yeah, go on.
we have a couple of questions.
Okay,
Let me know if you want me to go through.
sure. Let's take up the questions, Shubham. Yeah.
Okay, so from Sridhar, we have a question with CloudHub 2.0 offering containerized platform. Why would MuleSoft want to continue with RTF appliance or slash VM based option?
No, it is still needed, right? Because the customers who want to run their workload in their own infrastructure without relying on CloudHub, I mean, the customers who cannot move their Mule runtime or workload or integration traffic into cloud, they have to continue to use on-premise or their own private cloud structure, right? Deployment. So for them, they can still go ahead and use RTF as appliance and RTF bring BI okay option, right? Bring your own Kubernetes cluster. So that's definitely needed.
Okay, for next question.
Can you unmute the person, Subham, so that we can have an interactive discussion?
Sure,
Okay, sure.
Dipankar.
That will be good. Yeah. All right.
Shubham, you can unmute Sridhar.
Okay, yeah. Sridhar, you are unmuted. You can enable your
Yes,
mic.
Sridhar.
Hey, hi. Thank you. I think that answers the question. So basically, it is to have the customers on their customer-hosted network
Correct.
with the same abilities. If they don't really care about the security or the network challenges,
Right.
they pretty much get everything else, everything the same in the Cloud Hub.
Correct. And absolutely, there can be some regulatory or compliance requirement also, which may be driving them not to go to CloudHub, right? Uh, I mean, they have to continue to use their own infrastructure for some reason. So,
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Can you go to the next question, Subham?
Yeah, so it's from Priya. What is the main drawback we can't achieve in CloudHub 1.0 and that we can overcome in CloudHub 2.0?
What is the main drawback? Okay, I would not call it drawback, but there are certain additional features which are which are available with CloudHub 2.0. Definitely, as I mentioned, the better applications isolation you get, better it's much more faster when it comes to spinning off your deploying your applications in a containerized environment, right? Unlike your CloudHub 1.0, which is worker based or EC2 based. That's one benefit definitely. There are other things which you cannot do in CloudHub 1.0 are like you have to have your own expertise to set up your VPC, set up your dedicated load balancer configurations and all, right? When it comes to CloudHub 2.0, you don't have to worry about your load balancer configuration because that's not there at all. Okay, we'll talk about it in a moment because it comes with ingress controller by default without without requiring you to set up a dedicated load balancer unlike CloudHub 1.0, right? And you get to have access to that ingress controller log which you could not access the dedicated load balancer log in CloudHub 1.0. That's another huge benefit. And in terms of network connectivity, you get to use outbound firewall to control your outbound traffic, and the static IP is getting auto assigned to your network load balancer and NAT proxy is another huge advantage. Where when it comes to establishing connectivity using IP whitelisting both by your consumer and your underlying backend data centers and service providers. I hope that answers my question. If not, Priya, let us know. We can unmute you.
Dipankar, I want to add one point on that
Sure,
same.
Ashish, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the first drawback, I won't say drawback, the limitation for CloudHub 1.0 was outbound traffic, right?
Yeah.
From your worker, there was a challenge to where you're sending the traffic, nobody was able to track it, right? And one use case was I was facing with the client. There was a SFTP, and I wanted to whitelist on that. Okay, so the SFTP was expecting only single IP address. Okay, now tell me in the CloudHub 1.0 it's not possible at all. So whitelisting, you can give the cited block of a VPC, but that was not allowed on that. So it is possible in RTF. You can have your egress, control over there. You can take that NAT gateway IP address and go ahead and do that. So that is the thing. I think Priya, you can take it from this conversion that is possible in 2.0 now. You have static IPs. You go ahead and give those static IPs over there in your SFTP where you are whitelisting your server on your server. You're whitelisting something. So this is possible in 2.0. It was not possible in CloudHub 1.0. And second thing, I think this, in CloudHub 2.0, MuleSoft wants to be a self-serve, I guess, because that's the reason they have removed AWS Direct and VPC peering. For both the things, you need MuleSoft support, and that's what they removed. And Transit Gateway will take care of all those things, whatever connectivity, challenges were there. You need to move, you need to have point-to-point connectivity. We can simply say that loosely coupled and tightly coupled two concepts were there, right? Now it is completely loosely coupled with the help of Transit Gateway. So that's what Priya, you can take it from the CloudHub 2.0. And you don't need to pay for dedicated load balancer. That's where you're saving money, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect, Ashish. Thanks a lot. And just to summarize, it's far better operational experience, basically, right? You get much more enhanced operational experience when it comes to your setting up the entire infrastructure, right? Be it connectivity, be it the private space or private network. Yeah, as Ashish mentioned, it's all self-served now.
And cloud provider point of view also, maintenance point of view, it's easy because in
Right.
CloudHub 1.0, you are deploying one application on one worker. Now you can deploy n number of applications on one worker with the help of Dockers and Kubernetes. That's one.
And then it's completely abstracted. You don't have to know
Yes.
about whether it is worker, whether it is Kubernetes, whether it is Docker. You don't have to have any knowledge of Docker Kubernetes at all. It is completely managed by MuleSoft. Yeah. All right. So I think we have covered all these things earlier. We have talked about network connectivity. We have talked about multiple domain names. Shared space, you continue to use CloudHub.io, and in private space, you get to use vanity domain names as per your enterprise, customer enterprise. We talked about custom certificates, which is not possible in shared space, but we can use custom certificates to configure all the TLS context and all. And there is no private endpoints for shared space because it's all shared, right? You only get the public endpoints, but in private space, you get both public and private endpoints, which you can use for your all internal and external consumers, right? Or internal or external traffic. So these are the primary differences between shared space and private space. Okay, I forgot. Was there any other question, Shubham?
No, that's all.
Dipankar, I have one more question if you don't mind.
Sure, Sridhar, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand actually two questions. The first one on the vCores. We used to have vCores in CloudHub 1.0 because there were EC2 instances and cores basically.
Right.
But I believe, so how do we handle that in the containers environment?
I'll come to that point in a moment. Then I think that time you will get your answer. Yeah.
Sure. And then definitely I'll wait for that. And second one is then in two slides before you were showing the architecture of the obviously of the private space, right?
Yeah.
Um, where like a few more slides before, where we have the multiple private spaces within a region for a business group. So I was kind of a bit confused.
Okay.
Are we trying to say each of this private space is for one business group?
Yeah, I mean, you can create private spaces. Create private spaces under for a particular business group, right? Or you can go and share also. I'm not 100% sure. Probably Assis, can you do you remember whether you can share private spaces across business groups?
Yes,
I
we
I
can
think
share.
we can, right?
We
If
can
you
share
create it,
because yeah,
yeah, if you
because
create it at master level, I think.
we create all the configurations. This VPC, DLBs, private space, transit gateway, VPNs. These are agnostic to the any environment. They are agnostic
Correct,
to the
correct.
business.
Yes.
Right.
So
So
you can create separate business groups for separate private space for separate business groups, or you can share private spaces for across business groups as well, Sridhar.
gotcha.
Both.
And basically is the representation here of having multiple private spaces.
Hmm.
Is it like saying, hey, we are flexible. If you want to have a different private space for a different business group, that's possible. Or is it
Yes.
like saying per environment? Let's say in CloudHub 1.0, we generally
Mhm.
use the dev non-prod and prod for different VPCs. That's a
Right.
convention, right? So are we
Right.
saying we generally use one private space for non-prod and one private space for cloud? I mean, for the prod. Is that the idea?
It's exactly remains same, Sridhar. Okay, it's if you think of private space as VPCs. Okay, so like in CloudHub 1.0, you can create multiple VPCs and group your environments all non-prod into one VPC and prod in another VPC, right? You can continue to do that here as well. You can create one private space separately for your production workload, and you can use one private space for all your non-production environments.
Got you, but the actually I'll have to wait for that answer, because the reason why there was a problem. I mean, sorry to prolong this.
No problem.
This
Go ahead.
could be the last one. Um, in VPCs in CloudHub 1.0, everything was driven by vCores and the
Yeah.
CIDR IPs, right? So basically, which is CIDR IPs. Now,
Right.
if I create VPCs, multiple VPCs, it is getting costlier to me. Now,
No.
now
No.
here it's probably not that way. It is probably based on messages, I believe, and it doesn't matter how many probably then private spaces I have, right?
No. It matters because I think it will get answered automatically when I cover that part, replica
Gotcha.
and its capacity and sizing part, right? You'll get to know about it in better.
Sure, sure.
All right. So let's move on. So we'll talk about the features now, right? The same thing that we were talking just now, right, with Sridhar. So it's about replicas now, right? Earlier it was about workers. You used to deploy every application in single workers or a group of workers. Now we call it replicas, right? Because it's RTF based. It is it's a containerized. So keeping in that same line, we call every instance of Mule, every instance of runtime which is getting provisioned in the CloudHub 2.0 shared space or private space, we call them as replica, right? And it is exactly the same as worker, as I said. And you can there are certain things about, I mean, there are certain features of replicas. One is definitely the capacity. So we'll talk about capacity in the next slide. And uh, when it comes to isolation, manageability, and locality, as it is a single container for running your application, it is the application isolation is achieved in form of keeping every single container separate from each other for each application. And definitely for each replica you get to get the entire visibility separately, get to manage it separately using anypoint monitoring and runtime manager, in terms of logs and metrics and all the dashboards that you get, right, for each of the replica. Locality, as you can imagine, right, it is within the same global region. So wherever your shared space or private space is residing in the same region, it gets pinned up, and it is local to that particular region, right? Now, talking about capacity or replica capacity, it is still vCore based, Sudhir, to answer your question, right? So, but there are different fragments that you get in CloudHub 2.0. So unlike CloudHub 1.0, where there were no 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, or 3.5, these are the 4 different fragments that you get in terms of vCore size. It still starts with 0.1. So every replica will have minimum vCore size of 0.1, right? Uh, to answer your question, Sridhar, it will still continue to be on, based on vCore. Every single replica that you spin up for a particular application, it will consume certain amount of vCore from the subscription that you already have. So there is no change in the licensing terms. There is no change in the way you consume vCore earlier by spinning up multiple workers or one worker for every application, right? And consuming vCore. Here it is just about depending on the replica number of replica and the replica size, you continue to consume vCore from your from your pool basically. Uh, the only difference is you get multiple different fragments. Yeah. Now I can understand that now you may have question, right? Why it is still vCore based, right? So we are working on our different pricing model. MuleSoft is coming up with a different pricing model, which is consumption based, which will be available sometime probably next year or early next year. Um, Once that is available, right, that is released, or that option is available for the users, uh, this vCore consumption is also going to change completely. It is going to be not based on vCore or vCPU based subscription. It is going to be completely based on traffic. I hope that answered your question, Sridhar. If not, feel free to unmute.
I'm good, Dipankar. Thank you so much.
All right, perfect. Another point that I would like to highlight here is like the CloudHub 1.0, the fractional vCores, which are less than 1, right? Uh, there are limitations on CPU cycles and the IO cycles that you get, even though it is burstable for CloudHub in CloudHub 2.0 as well for in RTF cluster, but it is not as predictable as CloudHub 1.0 because it was worker based, right? You get to deploy only one application in one VM or worker. It was much more predictable, right? You used to get more credits if you are not using those CPU cycles for during the idle hours, and you get to use those more in during the peak hours, right? But when it comes to CloudHub 2.0, because a single VM is shared for multiple different applications running containers in the same node, it's not that predictable anymore, right? So we always recommend MuleSoft always recommend to use at least one vCore for all the production workload. Okay. And even though it is not burstable, it's not that predictable. That's the message here. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to application, endpoints of deployed applications, there is a big difference there. So based on the region that you select for your application to get deployed using CloudHub 2.0, there is an unique ID and the shard which gets appended with the application name, and you get a public endpoint like this, right? The application name hyphen and unique ID dot shard. I mean, people who are familiar with database terminologies, they will know what shard is. Shard is nothing but an identifier to identify a separate partition of a database, horizontal partition. A similar concept is applied here. A shard is nothing but identifier of a space, either a private space or a shared space in a particular region, right? Each private space get one value for shard, which gets appended to the endpoint. And for the applications deployed in shared space, it may have multiple shard values based on the different namespace and all, right? So that's a major difference. So but don't think that because we are an unique ID is appended, you can deploy same application with same name in the same private space multiple instances. That you can't. It still it keeps checking on the application name, and it does not allow you to deploy application but multiple instances of the application in the same space. Okay. um, yeah, the load balancer that you get in CloudHub 2.0, which are nothing but the ingress controller within that RTF cluster, also reside in the same region as your application, right? So that's the feature here. Now talking about multi-tenancy, there are three different type of level of multi-tenancy, right? One is your the entire global region or the shared global region where uh, it is being shared by all the accounts and all the customer who are deploying applications into that particular region, in that particular region using CloudHub 2.0. But I mean, they still keep their applications isolated in form of private space, private network, and definitely each application is deployed in a separate container. So even though it is a multi-tenant environment, cloud-based environment, uh, the customers it's completely secured and isolated, and the compliance and regulatory requirements are met, right? uh, Single tenant private space, as I mentioned earlier, even though it's a multi-tenant cloud infrastructure or region that you are using, you can keep your workload and the runtime and the cluster in a completely different space, isolated, logically isolated space in cloud 2.0. And when it comes to the platform services and the management console, basically anypoint control plane, it is all shared. Okay, the same UI, same monitoring services, same architecture, same components within the same region, either US control plane or EU control plane that the customer has chosen to use, right? And these services definitely they don't process or transmit customer data, so that in that way, even though these are shared, the customer data is still within the customer network and customer private space, right? Next, we'll talk about the availability and scalability quickly. When it comes to availability all the CloudHub 2.0 services, be it platform services or the your application runtime, uh, all are redundant, right? You can definitely the platform services are redundant across. There are multiple layer of redundancy. At least it is deployed in 2 data centers within a region. So uh, region level redundancies are ensured. And when it comes to your application deployment, you can definitely choose multiple replicas to make it redundant, right? Make it scale horizontally, right? um, it continue to support zero downtime and intelligent healing during the deployment. It does not bring down the application unless you have chosen that recreate deployment option. It's newly introduced in CloudHub 2.0. I'll give you a quick sneak peek as well. So there you can choose either recreate or uh, you know uh, redeploy option, where if you choose recreate, that means the application is is stopped first, it is undeployed first, and then another instance is deployed, just to make sure that there are not multiple instances running at the same time. But automatically zero downtime is available. All the CloudHub 2.0 updates, be it operating system level run patches or Mule runtime level patches, all are applied with zero downtime effect. And intelligent healing is there, like CloudHub 1.0. If any worker goes down, or rather any replica goes down, it gets automatically brought up by the platform itself, right? When it comes to clustering, you can enable cluster for any application, by which you can share the memory and and continue to support uh, uh, high availability or scalability by choosing multiple instances, multiple replica within that cluster. Load balancing are automatically taken care of by the ingress controller. It keeps distributing all the traffic to the replica within the cluster by round robin fashion, right? Auto scaling is still not available. You have to config, uh, scale horizontally or vertically manually till now. But once the consumption based pricing model is released, sometime next year, or sometime down the line, uh, auto scaling feature is going to be made available, right? So that's going to come very soon. When it comes to security, I think we have covered all those points already, in terms of applications isolation and single tenant private space. You get to isolate your application completely. In terms of inbound connectivity, ingress and egress traffic, you get to control through network load balancer and inbound and outbound firewall rules and static IPs. One thing to mention here is that, I mean, those who are already familiar with RTF, they know what is last mile security. It's about ensuring secure traffic all the way towards to the application, right? Your Mule runtime, by enabling it between the ingress controller and the replica that you have. So only thing is, the only difference from CloudHub 2.0 and CloudHub 1.0 is that for all HTTPS traffic that you are going to accept at an application level, you can continue to use 8081. You have to actually make sure that you have configured your HTTPS last listener to listen in 8081 port only, not in 8082 or 80 any other port. You can enable SSL session forwarding for each application, where you can do all the SSL handshaking in your own application only, not in that ingress controller or load balancer. And as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to securing all the data during transit, be it platform service or the or inbound traffic, right? You can control it using two-way mutual TLS between your consumer and the ingress load balancer, ingress controller. And last but not the least, your property values, application properties values can still be secured, just like the way you have been securing these properties in CloudHub 1.0, right? Those remain same. When it comes to monitoring, it keeps on, CloudHub 2.0 agents are there in the RTF cluster, which keeps on monitoring the applications and keeps on sending those data to your control plane through a secured channel. Whenever any application needs to be restarted, or it needs to be auto restarted, it automatically does it. When it comes to notification, it sends the notification about the success and failure of the deployment to your cloud monitor control plane console. Uh, you can choose to access the load balancer log or ingress controller log from that RTF cluster, which is completely different, which was not at all there in CloudHub 1.0. There was no way you could access the dedicated load balancer log, but here you have complete access to your ingress controller log, right? You can download it and you can use it for your troubleshooting, right? You can continue to forward all your logs to your external log aggregator platform like Splunk or ELK, using custom log4j configurator, as you have been doing in CloudHub 1.0. There is no change there, right? I'm not going to talk about it. You can go and check the features between CloudHub 1.0, CloudHub 2.0, and RTF in this particular public documentation that you have. It is very comprehensive there. It is very detailed out there, right? All the feature comparison between CloudHub 1.0, 2.0, and RTF. Any
Dipankar,
questions so far? Yeah.
yeah, sorry to cut you. I have one question. I was reading
Yeah, Ashish. Okay.
documentation, and I was reading if your application is undeployed in case of CloudHub 2.0,
Mhm.
it still consumes the vCore. Is that true?
If it is undeployed in vCore, in I mean, what do you mean by undeployed? You have
Yeah,
put it, you have stopped the application running, right?
correct.
But it is
So
still
in case
deployed.
of so in case of 1.0, it won't use vCores, but in 2.0,
I,
it consumes a vCore. Is that true? Because I was
I
reading.
think yes. I think yes, because it's containerized now, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
still there in the replica, but it is just that it is your traffic is cut off. Uh,
yeah, that's
Ashish,
what
that's
they.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Some little difference in Cloud 1.0 and Cloud 2.0.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how it is. Yeah. I'll check
Yes.
that out probably. I'll
Yeah,
check
yeah,
that out in detail. Yeah.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
All right. All right. So, few things to highlight here to summarize, right? Before we wrap up. Uh, Keep one thing in mind, guys. It is just a change in the underlying architecture and the way the applications run, the Mule runtime and the application runtime was managed. Okay. There is no change when it comes to your licensing, the customer's licensing. It remains same. It The customers get a better operational experience when it comes to easiness in setting up the entire infrastructure in private space or shared space and the network connectivity. Both CloudHub 1.0 and 2.0 can coexist. Okay, so it is enabled for all customers. We are not saying that CloudHub 1.0 going to be completely unavailable from the next day. Customers can continue to use it and plan to migrate to CloudHub 2.0 over the period of time. But I think for all new customers, only they are getting CloudHub 2.0. Any new account which are getting created in any point platform, right? I think they are all getting CloudHub 2.0 only. Okay. Uh, so it can coexist, and it's just a matter of change in the underlying architecture and the architecture. Okay. Uh, so the VPCs that you know in CloudHub 1.0, private space is what you get exactly similar to VPC in CloudHub 2.0, which is a private EKS cluster. The worker that you get in CloudHub 1.0, which are nothing but Amazon AWS EC2 instances, have are become now replica, which are individual containers running Mule in the EKS cluster. And the DLBs are completely gone. It is not there at all. You don't consume. We don't need separate DLBs entitlements or DLB configurations in your subscription in your platform. Ingress controllers within that cluster, EKS cluster or RTF cluster, it is completely inbuilt, and you just need to configure the SSL context, TLS context or firewall rules to control your traffic. There is there's nothing that additional that you need to do in ingress controller, right? Few key features to highlight. I think we have talked about this earlier also, but I'll just summarize. Uh, when it comes to private space, the major difference from CloudHub 1.0 are in form of firewall rules and inbound and outbound static IPs, which Ashish also have talked about. What are the different benefits that you get in CloudHub 2.0? There is no dedicated load balancer at all. You get to have access to ingress controller log, which is another huge benefit, and you get to configure multiple TLS contexts to set up multiple custom domains, right? That's another difference. And when it comes to application deployment, each horizontal clustering is completely managed and configured by CloudHub 2.0. You get to have more fractional vCores, as I mentioned earlier, 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3 and 3.5. Deployment model is rolling update and recreate. So rolling update is something where there is no downtime for your application. There is another replica is pinned up when you upgrading your version of the application without bringing that previous replica down. But when it comes to recreate, when you select recreate, those are specifically for the apps which cannot have multiple versions running at the same time, right? There are certain integration built, there are certain applications built which cannot run multiple different versions at the same time. So for those, you select recreate, where the existing version will be brought down first, and then the new version will be deployed. Okay. You get multiple endpoints for single applications definitely by configuring multiple TLS context, multiple custom domains, and one of the most important security aspect is you can enable last mile security and SSL offloading to your application basically, right? Few points to note. You can call it challenges, you can call it drawbacks, but most of these are being are there in the roadmap, and the MuleSoft product team continue to work on it and enhance on all these in upcoming releases. So for now, runtime support is 4.3 onward, right? You don't get to use 3.9 or 4.1 or 2 in CloudHub 2.0, right? US Golf Cloud control plane is not there, but it is there in roadmap for any of your customer if they are using US government cloud, so they cannot move on to CloudHub 2.0 just yet. Okay. Patching, when it comes to operating system level patching, MuleSoft completely manages it and applies it automatically. It occurs monthly, every month it runs the operating system level patch. And there is no downtime. And when it comes to Mule runtime patching, it is different from CloudHub 1.0. It is not scheduled and it is ad hoc mostly, right? It depending on the security releases and the fixes that we are providing, it gets automatically patched. Non-HTTP workloads are not supported at this point. This is a very important thing to remember, guys. Unlike CloudHub 1.0, where you can have non-HTTP workloads in form of HL7 or some other protocols, right? Those are not supported as of yet in CloudHub 2.0. Datagraph continue to work with CloudHub 1.0 only. Datagraph we cannot make it work with CloudHub 2.0 endpoints. API proxy, all the API proxy that you create in API manager will continue to be deployed using CloudHub 1.0 infrastructure only, vCores and workers only internally. It is not going to use, it is not still using CloudHub 2.0 replicas and all, but it is definitely there in roadmap. Flex Gateway is also not supported in CloudHub 2.0. Those are still not there. Deployment directly from Studio is not there yet. So probably in the upcoming versions of Studio or probably in the code builder that is going to come in future, that is going to get released in future. Probably some of you have already heard about it. It will have this option to deploy applications into CloudHub 2.0 in future, right? There is no concept of migration from CloudHub 1.0 to 2.0. It is all redeployment. Customers have to manually move to CloudHub 2.0 clusters separately from 1.0. Mule Maven plugins or Anypoint CLI are already updated and published, available for you to use. If you want to use the new platform APIs, new CLI commands to integrate CloudHub 2.0 deployments with your CI/CD pipelines, those are there to be used. Yeah. As I mentioned, auto scaling also going to be rolled out later on when we release consumption-based pricing model. And until then, minimum replica size will remain 0.1 vCore. All right, I think with that, I have come to an end. Maybe next another 5 minutes we can spend on any questions that you may have.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dipankar, I have two questions. Okay.
Yeah,
Giri,
Ashish, go ahead.
Giri, you have anything? Or
No. You can continue.
so, Dipankar, when we say,
Yeah.
right, the migration is not straightforward, I understand that because you missed one thing, like the persistent VMQ is not supported in CloudHub 2.0, and I think that is not there in the roadmap, I guess, right?
I think it is there, Ashish,
Okay, okay.
because
So,
when it I mean, if you enable clustering, you
mhm.
automatically get shared persistent shared memory.
That is different, right? In CloudHub 1.0, persistent VMQ means that guy is
Persistent
actually,
VMQ. Okay, I was thinking
yeah, that's
persistent object store. Okay, sorry.
no,
Yeah.
I'm talking about persistent
Okay.
VMQ. I think
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
not going to support by 2.0, right?
Right. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, second thing is, so these things are there, right? So some limitations are there, some improvements are there. So we have to plan our migration from 1.0 to 2.0. Now think
Absolutely.
about it, zero downtime we need to consider. I can't bring down my applications in production. So that means I need almost double V course when I'm planning to have migration.
Correct.
So
Yes.
I heard that Mulsoft is going to give those double. Means
Yes.
the second part is free for some time during that, whenever we are planning
Yes.
that migration. Is that true?
Yes. Yes. That's true. Yes. So the V code, whatever you get in the license, right? It is going
Mm-hmm.
to be doubled during that time, during the migration time. Whatever the customer agrees with the AE, right? AE or customer success team, they will provision it automatically.
Yeah.
That will be there.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Some
Great.
questions are there. Okay, so you can take those questions. Yeah, it's
Okay.
200 MB, guys. Okay, the logs limitation is 200 MB
Yes.
for
Yes.
30 days.
Yes.
Yeah, one more question I had, but I forgot that. Okay, maybe if you recall, I'll ask.
Sure. No problem.
Uh,
Anyone has any other question, guys?
yeah, Dipankar Sridhar again.
Yes, Sridhar. Yeah.
First of all, extremely useful session. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
One question is in one of the slides, there was a mention of, I'm just trying to recollect the name of the heading of the slide, but there is a mention of, like, the still like a cloud hub, VM being used, right? I think it's a
Oh,
tenancy.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
confused.
Right.
Shared global region, I believe. The MuleSoft shared global region is still going to use VMs. I'm totally confused with this because I thought we are moving to the. I understand the second and third, the runtime
So
and
basically under EKS, right? How is EKS structure? EKS is under the hood. It is still using VMs, isn't it?
right, right.
That's why we are saying that because it's an RTF cluster is based on EKS and EKS itself is using the VMs that is there in that cloud hub region. You're
But
getting my
then,
point?
well, that's a bit kind of not yet completely knowledgeable about the EKS architecture, but I can imagine it. But the point is, if I say my application has to be with US East region, right?
Mhm.
Now, I probably within the EKS, it will launch a container in the US East region, right? With all
Correct.
that.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
if I choose replicas, it'll be multiple available zones within that. Now, that's all
Correct.
fine. The pods will be done. But
Mhm.
now, going back to this shared global region where EKS is there,
Mhm.
now it can't be tied to any one region, right? So that's why it's saying, okay. So it's like AWS has no.
It's at a regional level. That's what we are saying.
This is like probably
At
a no region service, right? Like there are in AWS there are services with no region. Probably that is what it is.
no. EKS is not no region service.
Okay.
It's still within a region. No.
So what is the importance of this point number one? CloudHub 2.0. I mean, I'm still getting lost. What does point
See,
one say?
what we are trying to say is you have a region level multi-tenancy, right? At a regional level, you are still, even though you are a single tenant within a private space, right?
Got
But
it. Okay.
you are still using all the region infrastructure, region services. You're sharing all the services, all the underlying VMs and all with multiple different customers. Does that make it clear?
I think I need to go through for some more time, but thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, Sridhar, can I add one example? Okay.
Yes, please.
Sure.
So on my laptop, one example I'll give you. On my laptop, Dipankar also can deploy his application, and you also can deploy your application. But those will be there in a separate container. That is what the first point means. In your shared global region, we'll be having a VMs which will be having different containers. So in each container, your application, in different container, my application. So that's how we are sharing that VM. But in case of CloudHub 1.0, you'll get only one VM, and on that VM, I can only deploy the application. I can give that answer to your maybe. Hope that helps you. So one VM can have two clients applications running. That is what the multi-tenant means,
Exactly.
and the VM is.
Exactly. Probably I could not make it clear in my content or narrative, Sridhar, but that's what it is. What Ashish mentioned, right? You
No, I
get
mean,
VMs.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you get VMs and you spin up containers within a VM, even for multiple different customers, right? Not just for you. One VM is hosting multiple different containers for multiple different customers, basically, within a region.
Right. Correct. So, end of the day, for us, for the applications running the Cloud Hub, whether it is a single tenant or the other one is a public tenant, right? The shared tenant.
Right.
Either of them, for us, it is whatever region it is. The application goes into that region,
Oh
but
yes, absolutely.
behind the scenes, it's all about the containers using the VMs which are shared across multiple regions in a multi-tenant environment. Is it saying that this could be a security problem? I mean,
No,
why
it's not
would
a
we
security problem. It is just that we are making customers aware that
aware of
even
that?
though
Yeah,
it
got
is, it is in a single container, but still you are sharing the VMs, but it is
it. Got
controlled,
it.
isolated.
Got it. Yeah, understood. Understood.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Ashish, for pitching in.
And one thing, no log. I'm sorry, no HTTPS workloads. Does it mean we can't do a file read, I mean, those things are not
Yes.
possible. That's a big thing. It's
Yes, it
really a
is. It is. It's just for HTTP workloads at this point.
So I can't read a file and trigger my process. I can't do a
No.
schedule-based deployments. I can't
No.
do anything.
Schedule-based deployments you can definitely. Schedules
No,
are there.
but that's not a HTTP based, right? I mean, my flow starts with a scheduler, and it calls or does something with a file, something like that. It has nothing to do with it. So I think all that they are saying is an API based, a REST API or a HTTP API based.
Yes. Yes. At this point, yes.
Okay,
But
thanks.
the other things are all there in roadmap. Sridhar.
Correct. Yes, yeah. Thanks, Dipankar.
All
Once
right.
again, thank you so much. Appreciate all the effort.
No problem.
This is really great and a comprehensive one. Thanks. Yeah.
No problem.
Dipankar, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
So from Mohammed Yaqub. So why would a customer choose a shared space over a private space when both are of the same cost? Will the
All
private
right.
space comes with enhanced security?
All right. So sometime you really don't have. You don't want to really go for your backend connectivity. There is no data center, right? You don't have to have a separate private connectivity. Okay. You can live with the shared resources, shared space, public endpoint, and all, right? For those customers who are really not worried about downstream connectivity and they are okay with sharing space with multiple different customers and spin up the applications very quickly, they can use shared space for that purpose. I mean, definitely it is always advisable to go ahead with private space because you still get a logical isolation of your network and cluster. But if somebody does not care about downstream connectivity, they don't need to establish any connectivity to their data centers, right? It is all SaaS based, all public services that they are going to connect, right? And if they can live with sharing the components, network components, traffic, and then the cluster with all other customers in the region in the same shared space, they can go ahead with shared space deployment. I hope that answers.
So reduced effort and quick deployment with the shared space?
Yes, definitely. You don't have to spend time in setting up your private network, private space, and connectivity and all, right? You can just deploy it within maybe less than a minute time, an application in shared space.
Correct.
That's the main reason. Yes, absolutely.
And if they are okay with that cloudhub.io URL, if those guys are okay to share that URL, if they don't want to have their own certificates, then customers can prefer shared space. But I don't see any customer with shared space.
No, I mean, that's predominantly for people who are doing some POCs or some testing and all.
Correct.
But none. I 99.9% of the customers probably they will not have their production workload in shared space.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right. So, I think we can go ahead with the quiz now. Yeah.
Yes. Shubham, over to you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dipankar. Thanks for your valuable time on Sunday.
Thank you.
Drop, man. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks.